Right. You don't want to block the bishop. But worse than that, you started the beginning of Swiss, what's called Swiss cheese. Okay? You have Swiss cheese, bro? No. You started the beginning of holes in your dark square calf. All you need is one more pawn up, and now you've got the complete Swiss cheese, you know? And exacerbate that with moves like this, and now you see what I'm talking about. You're playing on the light squares with your pawns, and you're leaving holes. Now, the worst case of this kind of Swiss cheese is when it happens like this. You see, when you leave a hole here, and white can control it with a knight, a pawn, and you can't get in d6. But this is the beginning of a kind of Swiss cheese problem. Again, it might be playable, but it's considered passive, it locks in the bishop, and that's the problem. Now, we said knight e4 would be the move, but let's not dwell on bishop g5. Let's consider other white moves before we go into a step game. What other moves might white play that are Grunfeld sound? Or what? For example, a not sound move is a3. Does it develop a piece with bishop g7 and d6 and allow white to play e4? But the key point of the Grunfeld is that at this move, black plays d5. And I would classify it in the hyper-modern style of openings by black. Namely, that black does not occupy the center, particularly with his pawn. Now, Fischer, Spassky played a number of games that could have done that as an example for tonight. So what I'm going to show is probably the greatest game of the previous century, known as the game of the century by Fischer. But first I'm going to just talk about the Grunfeld a little more. So black plays b5, and he at least says, you know, I'm not going to let you play e4, and I'm going to try that. Now probably seems like a good time to look at the game of the century. Okay, I have it marked here. Okay, there it is. Now, what I didn't mention is one last thing about the Grunfeld, the main line.
Why don't you put that
is that the main line for many years, and many people play, is pawn takes pawn, knight takes pawn, e4, right? Not knight takes knight, we already discussed that. Knight takes knight, pawn takes knight, and now black has two main moves. What would those be? Anybody know? And c5. You can interchange those two moves. Either c5 or bishop g7. So maybe you play bishop g7, and already white has to make some important decisions here, because he has to catch up. So he plays maybe this is the most aggressive move. And black might play the most aggressive answer here, c5, right away. Now remember what I told you earlier. The way you can judge if white is doing extremely well in the Grunfeld or not is if the two central pawns can advance safely. If they both can advance safely, it's an overrun. White is overrunning black. If only one can advance, there's often problems. So for example, you can't advance this because this hangs with check and so on. If you advance this pawn here, you're going to get hit by the rook eventually. Queen takes, bishop takes, rook over, and then the discovered checks are going to win material for black, win material back for black. Significant material. You're going to win the rook, you're going to win the d-pawn, you're going to shatter the pawns here, everything's going to happen at once. So you dare not take the pawn. If you take the pawn with the bishop, knight takes queen, bishop takes queen, knight takes knight, and black is already winning. He's attacking here, the bishop's hanging, and black is winning. So he dares not take the knight that way, and if he plays queen to knight 4, how could play follow? Queen to knight 4. That also loses. Very simple. Actually, the note here is wrong. The note given here actually gives a different line than what could have happened. It's much simpler than that. grading says knight takes bishop, knight takes knight, bishop takes rook. But he could play, that wins. He could play bishop takes knight and knight takes bishop. That also should win. Okay? Maybe there's some complications because the bishop takes pawn. So maybe he's right. Knight takes bishop, knight takes, bishop takes, and the white king is caught in the center. So anyway, white, after knight a4, it's this surprise offer of the knight. This is where the brilliancy starts. The rest of the game is like one long combination by Fischer. Now, by the way, Fischer, as a player when he matured, did not like complications. He only liked complications that were perfect for him. He didn't take chances. He played combinations that were perfect, not anything unclear. He liked clarity. That's why I call him the Mozart of chess. And incidentally, there's going to be a workshop on Fischer at the Marshall Chess Club, a symposium. I hope Bobby Fischer Symposium.